Eastern Standard Time, even though I'm in Mountain Time. And my special guest co-host, who you know so well, Rita, is in Pacific Time. But this is the LinkedIn Live Hour of Empower. We're here every day, 7 days a week. Been doing it for a long time. Really, me and Rita were talking how proud and gratified we are as how well this group is coming together, helping each other, and getting real time stories of comfort, relief, uh, peace, whatever it is people are looking for. It's starting to demonstrate itself. So I can't be thankful enough. Today's word of the day is wisdom. So let's put our thinking hats on and really focus on what wisdom means to us initially, because then we'll be able to stretch and see more ways wisdom could mean something to more people, and maybe allow everybody to review their whole vocabulary to be a little bit more understanding, thoughtful, or just more wise. With that said, chat's open. We depend on you to direct us. We've got our first individual. There should be a door prize for hitting the button first. From Jatendra out in India, thank you so much for coming. While we have a break into action, and by the way, yesterday was a record show, had over 350 comments during the show, and you know, it's just great when people take advantage of the opportunity in front of them. With that said, Rita's here. Rita, why don't you say hello and give a little thought, your view on wisdom.
Well, to start with, Don, it's time for me to put the hat on. So here we go. So we're both hatted. Now, I noticed today that you're about at my height. So did you find phone books to sit on, Don?
No, but here's what I will tell you what I learned is the top of your head should occupy at least 80% or more of the screen.
Okay.
So here, I'll show you. So there. Now, about 90.
I'm really tiny, so I would have to.
Well, you know, you have to tilt the screen to.
I can do that.
Yeah. See. So what they say is now you're more eye to eye, and if all they can see is what they're seeing, it doesn't look like you're slumping in the chair.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're more, upright, it's better. So, anyways, not to interrupt, but I thought.
Oh, I like the banter. We don't do enough banter. It's good to laugh. Laughter softens life's rough edges. And on that note, laughter is very, very important to me, to all of us right now, because we are in a defining moment in our lives for various reasons, the storms of life without and within. For those of you who are in bad air this morning, whether allergies like Eugene or Canadian wildfires, I feel for you, and I hope that at least for this hour that it takes your mind off of those things. So I started to think about what kinds of questions that we might throw out, so to speak, to our participants in our family of belonging this morning, Don. And I had put some of those down. I'm kind of looking over at my notes. I think we ought to start with, let me throw it out to our wonderful family of belonging here. What does wisdom mean to you? Because it's probably got a different meaning for all of us. And I know when I read books, like I grabbed, I don't like to be leaning over, thought I had them, the Holy Man, the Alchemist. Anyway, just the idea that there are books that we can read, whether it's the Bible for you or a prayer book or whatever you read that brings you peace and some grist for the mill, some form of wisdom, some peace. That's just great. So let's start with that. What does wisdom mean to you? And we'll go from there.
Yeah, well, in the meantime, let's recognize these wonderful people. We said hello to Jatendra earlier.
Thank you all for coming.
Is just a great lady, has a wonderful spirit, and just helpful in the optimistic ways of things. Kelly's here. Kelly's an anchor. This show couldn't be what it is without Kelly and what Kelly has provided. Christine's here. Christine is the most prodigious person with so many balls in the air as far as being able to juggle them so well. To me, wisdom is exceptional insight gained through experience. It's one of those things I know when I see it. For example, Leslie Flowers. Well, that's great. You compliment another individual, and that also gives somebody third-party validation. But
Right.
more importantly, you know, it's knowing that tomorrow there's something more you can learn, something more you can
Right.
teach in how you learn, and teach how to learn. So there's so many layers that one can leverage with wisdom. And what I really enjoy is appreciating that wisdom does come a lot of times from experience,
Yeah.
right? And the more experience you have, the more wisdom you gain, let's hope, from those experiences that
Yes.
you can share. And that's one of the goals, I believe, is solving so many of our mental health challenges through peer-to-peer support and sharing people's wisdom who has individuals who have so much and not an outlet. And then
Right.
people access who need it to those people and really serve as an interface. So Dennis is here. Agree, enjoy to laugh, and we will last happily. We should always be bringing things to the surface like laughter, love, happiness, because it's in us, it's around us. We just need to focus more on achieving it.
Right.
That is achievable. Some of these long, lofty goals are a little bit, ambitious. Aharon is here. Thank you for being here. Ice is here. I haven't seen Ice in a while, but she's always a welcome guest. Andrea's here. Tuesdays are just so special when Andrea's on. Again, Ice. So it's so great to see these so many wonderful friends. So Rita, how are you seeing wisdom today, and how can it be applied with vehicles like LinkedIn Live?
There's so much wisdom available to us on LinkedIn Live, as well as other resources for sure. What I see for wisdom is that if we're talking in terms of our connections and collaboration and our networking from LinkedIn, there's always somebody who knows something that I don't know. In fact, last week I had a quick dialogue with a Scrum Master. And as I learn more about business from education, there are acronyms and words that I don't know, and there are things that I don't know. But there are other people who are very wise in that they've had way more experience than I have, and they have a wisdom that has come from practice, learning, listening, maybe reading books, or from the world around us. Wisdom for me is about applying those things that I've learned in my life through trial and error. I've certainly made more than my share of mistakes, but I also never want to have regret and look in the rearview mirror. And when I get to the point that I can actually accept it, I'm really okay that I don't have to know everything. I need to know where to get that information. And for me, that's what wisdom is, using what I've already learned, what I've already experienced, applying new things so that I continue to grow and transform. It's about upskilling and being a lifetime learner, which I obviously am. There's so much I don't know. That's wisdom to also knowing what I don't know and that I need to learn, and listening and silent are the same letters.
Hmm. Well, that's very interesting, and kind of brings to mind that wisdom
Yeah.
is also based on accessibility
Yes.
and the enjoyment in how it's delivered,
Yes.
right? So you can have wisdom on one side and desire for that wisdom on the other, but
Right.
how accessible that is makes a
Right.
difference on whether someone receives it, and how one gives it determines how one appreciates it. So in a forum like this, where you could learn
Mhm.
little bits every day and
Right.
form slowly, or you can just become more aware of options you didn't think you had,
That's right.
right? Because what you're looking for is permanent benefit, not permanent change,
Right, right,
right? So you want to keep the
right.
change going, but you want to bring in the good stuff and put it with the rest of the good stuff. And all of a sudden, your mind changes with wisdom, and your
Right.
action starts changing because now you're receiving benefit. Your
Mhm.
help is not only on the way, it is there. Now, how much wisdom do you need once you have access to
What
it?
are you saying, Don, that you can overflow with wisdom?
Well, there's a point for them that has to go into application, right? So, what did you learn? And if you learned what you should do, did you really do it, or did you just learn it?
So are you saying that there's really no, wait a minute. Are you saying that there may not be wisdom as we think there is, and unless it's more
Well, I think it's
provable or transparent?
well, I think it's different the way the need for it is, because when I look
Oh,
back
okay.
at when I went to school, they
Right.
taught so many things at the time I thought were totally unrelated to where I was in life. So, like history,
Yes.
like,
Yes.
dates and names, and it's like I didn't see how I could ever use this in my everyday
Right.
world, and languages I never had an interest in speaking. So the point is it was unmotivating and it wasn't stimulating enough to get me involved. But now, if someone would have known Google was going to be here when you needed it,
Right.
all these dates and memorizing them was doing something that later on turned to be temporary. So,
Just ask Siri, right?
yeah, and now instead of people learning facts and figures,
Right.
now people start to identify with emotion, with stories. So
Right.
it's more experiential learning
Yes.
than it is here's something loaded up in your mind and use it when you need it, uh,
Mhm.
versus what do you need to learn right now to get into the next
Oh,
moment of your life. So with that, let's hit some more comments. I'm so happy to connect
okay.
with all the wise souls here. Wisdom sharing is key, and that's the key, and that's what we're talking about is
Right.
access. And not only
Right.
that, but
Mhm.
this is not a one-time show. We come back tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. But you also have all these people who are demonstrating they're here to
Right.
learn, to grow, to change, to help other people do the same thing. So reach out to them. If you've got an empty hour this week and there's someone here that you really appreciate and you think you could learn a little bit more from, and in turn
Right.
demonstrate something in return, whether it's gratitude or just identifying why, you'll build that relationship when you would have been doing nothing that is going to build that relationship if you didn't do that. So Ice is greeting Christine. Try to get to the meteor ones. Cindy says, I think Don is saying wisdom is not wisdom if you don't use what you learn. Yeah, just
That's
you know,
very
to become
kind.
information, data,
Yes.
right? It
Right.
isn't wise if it doesn't do anything. I mean, if someone doesn't do anything or you don't do anything with it, it was an incomplete connection, right? Someone who provided it didn't understand you didn't want it, and it just means you should build relationship and build wisdom on it, because trust is everything in learning.
Right.
Right? If you don't
Right.
trust the words, if you don't trust the
Right.
individual, it all gets a little bit squirrely, and it's like it's not, like melted ice cream. You know, it doesn't
But
work.
but your wisdom to you may not be what I consider wisdom. And that's where the rapport comes in and what we've been talking about with our communication. That what you say is okay with me. I need to accept what you say as your truth. That is your wisdom that you're sharing. Even if you don't say, here's my wisdom. I'd like to expand from that, Dan, Don. I'm not thinking Dan, Grandpa Dan last weekend. This is Don. John, what people influenced you the most? One or two that you thought were very wise people, and it clicked with you maybe all your life. Do you have someone? And I'm wondering with our family of belonging here this morning, how do you all feel? Do you have someone from your past that you thought was so wise and it just rocked your world? And also right now, do you have someone that's rocking your world because they know things that you maybe didn't or you didn't think about, and then you go, aha, that's wisdom.
Yeah, well, that's such a great direction of thought or redirection of thought, because the people you may remember as the people you looked up to and admired for the wisdom uh, are the people you should be looking for today with that characteristics. You know what I mean? So to me, my grandmother was always the smartest person. Not because of, again, the history books or any of that. It was just with people, situations, just she had a keen eye for every little detail wherever she went. And then at night she'd want to talk all about it, And it's usually family or friends we'd visit, and we'd go through it together. And the other person was a business partner that I had for 12 years, turned out to be a billionaire, and opened up so many doors, created so many opportunities, because where he went, I would go. And he went places no one else went because of who he was. And because people would always say, how did you get here? And I'd always say, I'm with him,
Right.
And we were the best of buds. We'd come in every month, because, not to get into detail, anyways, those were the two people who I really trusted, because I knew they were giving more than they needed to in return for what they could get if it was just transactional. So because it went beyond transactional into, I think, a really positive codependency, where everybody's better for each other. And just knowing that you're going to continue to see someone over time is like, hey, that's enough. Most people don't have that safety net. Most people don't have that support. And that's why programs like this is so important, right? Because people are living right now. This is not a history class.
Right.
This is a life class. So anyways, let's just go to start here. My dear departed mother and father, especially my father, because why people go to grandparents, go to parents, is because they know how much sacrifice now they had to give that you took for granted at the time. And at the same time went so far to help you and open a road for you. So I think, Cindy, that's so important, because, when you can really tie in to something that was really valuable to you and bring it back to life, you honor it or them, and you put yourself in a better position, right? Because, even loneliness is a state of mind. It's who do you include in your loneliness? Just you to the party. We may become more accepting with age, however, make better choices too. The other thing is, because everything's moving so fast, you may need to make choices slower. We always talk about respond, don't react. Buy yourself a couple more minutes or a day or two. And why not? Especially if it's important. If it's frivolous, don't worry about it. Olu's here. Olu's always circulating and getting to know everybody. Okay, form of service. Olu, another one. Happy to be here. Oh, Dr. Constance is here. I was just saying it was the best show as far as comments and minutes viewed. So I have to thank Dr. Constance for really getting the crowd energized, involved, excited, because, you know, that's who we are by what we demonstrate to others, not by what we say about ourselves or who we think people want to hear from or know from. You know, there's, you know, when we talk about wisdom, there was somebody
Right.
who said, if you want to know who somebody is, ask them what they read, and that'll tell
Mhm.
you who they are. You know, if they're reading comic books, if they're reading novels, again, no judgment, but that just
Right.
shows
Right.
a lot. And sometimes that's what you should ask somebody is, what are you interested in, instead of telling me who you are, right? I mean, what movies do you like? You know, what's your favorite destinations? Things like that are simple questions, but they tell a lot. If somebody's going to the North Pole every other week, you know, just going to the park, it's a whole different ball game. And I think wisdom is based on curiosity,
Mhm.
right? You have to have that desire. I mean, that's why Google does so well. Is you Google something, oh, this, I got to Google that, and pretty soon you never stop Googling, you know, some derivation that you started with. But
Right.
also, if learning is fun, and learning doesn't have to be independent of fun. You know, most people look at learning because the way they looked at school, hey, this is boring, this is time consuming, I'd rather be somewhere else, you know, versus creating your own curriculum now. You know, before you were forced into it in most cases. Now you can have electives. And I think that's so cool. Trusting is foundation where we open up, I agree, and learn the true teachings as a real. This is true wisdom. Yeah, well, you know, ask
Yes.
somebody what they read, they tell you who they are. Ask somebody who they are, it's like, what did they do?
Right.
You know, and there's a differential. So, Rita,
Yes. So while we think about our past and growing up, and we think about who really affected us, who we felt was wise, I would have to say my mother, above all else. Those of you who know parts of my story know that my mother is the one who encouraged me to become a teacher. So long before I was a school principal and the other wonderful things I got to do, I went with my mother from about age 11 teaching adult non-readers. My mother was just so wise, you know, and I think that all of us have someone in our past, as well as our future, hopefully, and what's happening right now. The future is now, but it may have been a neighbor. It might have been an auntie or a nana or a grandpa. It could have been anybody, or it could have been a writer. That's why I mentioned a couple of my favorite books. When I want to really rev myself back up in a positive way, I'll read The Alchemist. I'll go back to The Power of Now, or the greatest of all, the preachers and ministers, the uh, keynote speakers, as I am and was. That wisdom is there for the taking. It's just about, does what they think is their wisdom match what we think? So when I had the question that I wrote about, who in the past did you find to be really wise and affect you in your life? We also need to look at what's happening right now. And I'm wondering, from our family, one more time, is there anybody else who affected you so much that it literally changed the course of your life?
yeah, I'm always looking for stories. You know, they say facts tell, stories sell. You
Yes,
know, and everybody wants to hear your story before they want to hear your numbers or your facts again. And I
right,
think that's where everybody needs or can grow too, is being
right,
more of what they always wanted to be,
right.
and being able to show up in ways they never could or thought they could before. And it's a lot to do.
Mhm.
Wisdom is tied to reinvention, you know,
Okay,
to
right.
reinvent yourself. you need to have more information, or you need to shuffle things around in the new priority status. You know, some people built their house based on the time of day and where they were, and the house
Yeah.
as they did. But wouldn't it be great if everything was just a component that you can exchange and interchange and replace? And I think so many people will modernize their kitchen, but they won't modernize their thoughts, their actions, their relationships. You know, it's all like putting the cards back in, shuffling them up, and choosing another hand, not getting a hand dealt to you.
Oh, that's a good thought.
You know, everybody says, I just need a new hand. And it's like, well, this looks like gave up, you know, if you ever played bingo or something. And so that's what I advocate is freshen things up. And the way to do that is get more wisdom. And the beauty of getting it, it doesn't mean you gotta accept it. It just means you look at it just like anything else and you decide, does this work for me now? Does this align with where I am? And sometimes you'll take a little bit of it. Someone offers you a big cake. Sometimes a taste, right? You don't need the whole slice. And you save something for the other person. So I think it's really kind of like supermarket sweep, you know, get as much as you can in the best way you can, and then change things because of it. Change other people around you because when you learn, the people you care about learn because you're going to share that with them. You know, I just found a way of getting $10 off of something, right? Everybody wants to hear that. You know, you're a hero.
Right.
So wisdom comes in different forms and different ways, but you should have a shopping list at least to say, what am I on the lookout for? You know, and if I can get some of this, I'm going to buy it today. It looks like Olu's going to be on Dr. Constance's show. It's so nice to see people circulating. Olu's a great guy. Here we go with a sheaf. We can always fall forward to wisdom. And if you think that and you believe that going in, it will happen. You can't open the door without a key sometimes, you know, or some people jump through a window when they could have walked through the door. So, you know, it's just a matter of being there when you can get the best benefit in the best way. When you get wisdom, you then get knowledge, and then you have understanding. You know, and cool thing about wisdom, once you search for it and you find it, you can still search for the same kind of wisdom and build on it. Right? There's many different viewpoints. They say don't ever accept a pole of one. You know, get some insights, and you know what? Make a post out of it. You know, here's what I'm most curious about today. I've been thinking about this. Anybody out there in my network have any thoughts? And here's where it even gets better. Is that's what polls are for. I do a poll every day of the week. Sometimes it's general and I get a lot of attention. And sometimes it's very specific. Like today, I said, would you like to learn more about my collaboration, whatever I did? And I'll get 10 or 12 replies. And out of the 10 or 12, there's probably 2 or 3 that I feel are relevant. Well, that's 2 or 3 that now I can reach back to who did something first to make themselves known. You know, same thing, who looked at my profile. Well, those are people that took time and effort before I knew them.
Yes.
Right? So why not thank them? And if it's just thank you for taking the time to view my profile, I see we have a lot in common, you know, and you can leave it at that, or let's have a Zoom, you know, but those are right in front of you. It's just a matter of seeing the wisdom in it and following people, if you don't see it, who are doing it, and see how you can support them and maybe, duplicate from them. So Rita, a lot of great comments today, a lot of great.
I see that. Okay. Most of the time it's harder for me, more challenging to look over and read. So I do it afterward. I'd like to ask our family this morning, whether you have done or do affirmations, which are a piece of the wisdom pie to me. Some years ago, I actually still had a script typewriter. That's all it did is it wrote in script. And I did a list of affirmations. There were about 25 of them. And today, that list still holds up. What I wrote then is still part of my affirmation list and part of my wisdom. And I'm just wondering if anybody in our family has affirmations. So this might relate to the law of attraction. If I put it out, this is what I need to get back. I'm going to call what I need to get back. But affirmations can be very powerful. And over the years, I've been known to take sticky notes and put them above the mirror, or motivational quotes. And that's a part of what I wanted to ask you this morning, too, whether you have motivational quotes that are part of your wisdom collection. So kind of goes together. So beyond just defining wisdom and thinking about who we thought in our past was a wise person that we could learn from, do we have our own affirmations? Because that's truly our wisdom.
Well, and I think one good thing about how you start your day has a lot to do with how your day is going to go from there. Because there's days when you wake up and you feel like $1 million, and then the next day you feel like you can't get out of bed, and you're
Yeah.
how could the world have changed so quickly? And it's not about the world. It's about attitude. It's
Right.
about gratitude. It's about respect, and
Right.
really being humble and modest. I mean, so many people are trying to rise above when they should really center themselves in the smallest amount of thought and work necessary to be happy.
Right.
Right? Because if happiness is your goal, then getting there is more important than getting things that someday or may temporarily make you happy. Because that's what you should be building on. And the wisdom should be based on, is this going to create happiness? Because most of it is halfway. Well, this will create a job. Well, then the job will create an income, and the income will do this. And meanwhile, you got 6 parts of the puzzle that if one together, you don't get happy, right? I'd be happy, but I don't
Right.
have any money. I'd be happy, but I don't have,
Right.
and that's what,
If only I had this.
yeah.
What kind of is that wisdom? What kind of wisdom is that? If only I had that, then I'll be happy. If only this happens tomorrow. Well, life gives us second chances, and it's called tomorrow.
Well, and plus, sometimes you got to look at yourself as the person who's receiving what you're asking from yourself.
Yes.
Is this reasonable? And what do you have you can be happy with is the bigger question, not what don't you have that you won't be happy until you find, right? Because you put yourself in a trap that says, I'm an unhappy person because this. I didn't get accepted to this school. I got fired
Right.
from that job. I lost my money. Whatever it is, it's going to happen. The key is, how do you pick yourself back up and feel good about getting up, not from what put you down. That's a completed action. Once
Is
you
that
get,
acceptance or wisdom?
it's what works the best to get you out of a bad situation.
Okay.
Right? I mean, just like tools, there are certain tools that do certain things in certain
Right.
situations, and you're really happy when you have them and you need them. And wisdom, I think, comes from, yeah, I can identify this to what my grandmother told me, or I can relate this to something happened to me 20 years ago, was just like this. Because of that experience or that wisdom that someone shared with me, now I've got tools that
Right.
I wouldn't have had without them. So it's like someone packs you a lunch and you're not hungry when you walk at the school, but
Yeah.
at
Right.
12 o'clock, you're sure happy someone took that effort to put all these delicious things in for you. So everything we talk about, every word, it's really starting out with a desire to be happier, be better, and
Right.
have the company of people who are happier and are getting better in different ways. And that's what makes it interesting. If everybody had the same experience every day, there's no knowledge share, until someone says,
Mhm.
I went to the Grand Canyon. I'm like, I've never been there. Tell me what's it like, right? That's going to be something I can live through you and save a ticket and walking around. And anyways, I know we get off. Uh, Louise Hay was the best teacher.
Right.
Also, Wayne Dyer. Uh, Rita, love your hat. Two people I've seen in person. And if you're old enough, and most of these people were going around when they weren't that big. That they were accessible to people. Most of them were
Right.
writing their first book and trying to get seen and known, just like a lot of people today. So your heroes today could be you tomorrow, because
Oh,
you were at one point themselves. The question is,
right.
how did they get in front of themselves? How did they become their best supporter until someone else showed up to help them out? I says,
Don, excuse me, you and I had talked about legacy and commitment prior, and I know you have legacy coming up again. There's never enough time to talk about legacy. But wisdom also ties in directly when you go back and talk about with Leslie, I think it is. When we're looking at wisdom, there's so many spokes that go out. It's not just, oh, gee, I love listening to Maya Angelou, and she's so wise, and I know I can grow and learn from her, or Brown, or anybody that you hold true to yourself. But there are people just around us all the time that maybe aren't famous people, but I know I've learned a lot of wisdom hanging around in school cafeterias and on playgrounds and in school offices and everywhere else that I go. There's always somebody that knows something that I don't. And even when Don and I talked this morning for a minute, he has so much wisdom and knowledge about LinkedIn and other things that I don't have. And I'm like, I'll soak it up. Tell me what you think, because I'm at 99.9 of what you just told me I didn't know. But it's also about being wise enough to recognize that right in front of us, there's a growth opportunity. The only one who likes change is usually a wet baby. I say that a lot because most people don't readily accept change or want to change. It's easier to stay where we are. But when we do find a quote or a piece of wisdom that makes sense to us, then we are more readily, at least in my opinion, we're more readily able to say, I don't know anything about this, but I see wisdom right here. And I'm going to listen, really listen with intention. Mm,
yeah, and to that point, which I think is so valuable and so
right.
important to apply, is showing is so much better than telling. In
Yeah.
school, I used to have show and tell,
Right.
and people would bring in their pets or their interesting
Right.
or whatever it was that they thought was worthy
Yeah.
of everybody else's attention. That's so key, is learning by watching, not learning
Right.
by sitting in a classroom or a
Right.
screen and going through an outline. There's people you look at and say, boy, I just learned something, and you may never see that person again.
Right.
Somebody might have told you something like that quote you'll never forget in just a
Right.
minute of a conversation, and you took something away. And one way you got to be open enough to learn. And if you're too focused on looking for things, you give yourself up to the spontaneity of things that happen.
Mhm. Yeah.
So it's usually letting the experience be the teacher,
Right.
not the form of the experience. So,
Hmm.
people who go out in nature will think of other things because nature thinking led them to that area, right? If you're at a bank, you're thinking about deposits, numbers, making sure everything's straight. You're never going to move from there to a nature thought. You know, you're going to move to like, I hope I didn't miss something, make a mistake or whatever. And that's why shifting faster, you know, I mean, when you're driving, you got to pay attention to driving. So,
Right.
but when the car stops and you get out of it, now you should be paying attention to, you know, like you mentioned, the power of now. You know, everything's perfect in the now, right? It's everything that came before and might come after that creates stress and tension. And if you can come back to today, right now, with where you're at, with who you're at, and you know, what I love about change is it validates what you were doing if it didn't work. Right? It's like try this food, you know, it's better than what you usually eat, and you try and no, it isn't. But I tried it, and I'll probably never do it again, but I tried it, and I validated I really enjoyed what I have been eating compared to this.
There's some wisdom there.
Everybody's got a different taste. I mean, I see people put seasoning on stuff. It's like, how do you eat that stuff now? You know? And some people just can't get enough of it. So let's go through some comments. People don't realize that change is only constant in his life. Resistance is futile. It's painful too to hold on to something that's not there anymore.
Right.
So true as intention of sharing wisdom is interesting. Wisdom has different angles, as intention is one of them. Wisdom today is foolishness tomorrow in some cases. And sometimes it lasts forever. So, you know, everything has a wear date to a point, and that's why you should change. Before change affects you, you should affect change. That's wonderful, Ambambola. Let me go further.
So you're saying being a change maker, that's where we talk about taking risks and the wisdom of taking risks. And also, there's no failure, only feedback. That's something that I stand by. You don't have to agree with me, but I don't believe in teaching people to fail forward and to spend so much time talking about failure. I much prefer to look at, if I did this and this didn't work, then I'm going to do this. And ultimately, you're going to get where you want to go. If we have somebody who knows things that we really need to know, then I can take that wisdom and make it mine. I will apply it a little differently, but it's there. So that's really a judgment call about whether we think that we're going after wisdom by reading something. For example, I decided I wanted to read the new Jane Healy book about hope. And so I picked it up from my Kindle. And there's so much wisdom in that book, every single page, that I still haven't finished it. And there are a couple of books right now where normally I speed read, but not novels and not something like Healy's book, because I'll get stuck on a story about the orangutans or a story about poachers or whatever. And her wisdom just flies off the page to me. But that doesn't mean necessarily that a friend of mine would pick up that book and pick out those nuggets of wisdom. They wouldn't necessarily be the same. So your wisdom may not be my wisdom. And when I look at things that I think are wisdom, there also does have to be a definition there and a serious look at what that entails. Just my opinion on that.
No, and that brings to mind.
I love the power now.
Every day I take my walk. Been doing it for 20 years. You know, every day at least 2 miles, and part of that is listening to my Audible. Right. So, you know, I'm part of the Book of the Month Club, and sometimes I too. And I just finished the book called "What's in It for Them." And exactly what we're doing here. The whole philosophy and strategy is building trust, building relationships by what you can do and what you do for others long enough for them to appreciate that it can be reciprocal. And by building something that's reciprocal, now you're building something that's sustainable.
Okay.
Right? Because now people want to ratchet up. You know, it's like, hey, we have time doing that. Let's try this. And after a while, it's like they become the preferable opportunity. So getting back to the walk and audible, it reinforces each other that I can't wait to walk to listen to my book, and I can't wait to listen to my book so I can walk. And so much faster and easier when my mind is not on, am I exercising? Did I get my time in? This is getting kind of cold out here, things like that. And that's what keeps you going towards your goal, is putting in those things that someone says, oh, where is he? He's out walking, listening to some tape. Well, yeah, that's what most people who change think. But hey, when he comes back, he's going to be smarter, healthier, more energetic, because this is a marathon. I mean, I've been doing this every day, 7 days a week, and I can't get enough of it, because it allows everything we're talking about to happen in real time. And not only that, this is not just academic. This is not just striving for greater personal, professional success. This is survival techniques that people are sharing. When this happens, think of that. When this happens, do that. When that happens, call this person.
Right.
I mean, when you went away, when your kids were just old enough to take care of themselves, right? And you could go away and leave them for an hour or two, you'd always have a list. Here's all the numbers you call, right?
Right.
Just call this person and have a list. You never want to see yourself at the end of the list, because that was probably the most non-trustworthy person. That's a 7 don't show up, call anybody. So that's what I like to say, is be innovative, be playful, have some fun. It's all going to go away one day anyways, and that's why you should take every day as if it's your last, and be so grateful when tomorrow turns out that today wasn't your last. And you won't worry about the little things. The little things never come back to you. It's you that needs to be the big thing, So let's go through some of these comments. Linda's really great. When lives were told to stay in and missing, the country found cards with words or pictures of things loved on my mirror to give me happy mindset to start the day. That's so true, because if we talk about family, before the internet, before all this electronic stuff, people would play cards. Everybody would play gin rummy. Everybody, you'd have people over on a, family, and the older people would have their little card table going, and
Right.
poker games, and people have their coffee and their cake and a nice lace table that they'd set. All those things. You took time to reflect, and that's when people shared wisdom, was at the dinner table. How was your day? What happened today? And everybody would be interested to hear what was going on, or who was getting a promotion, or whatever the case. And I think we can build that same type of old-fashioned but necessary family, that people are saying, hey, they're having fun over there. What are they doing? They're playing horseshoes. What are they doing over there? They're playing cards. We got to ask ourselves, what are we doing for fun with each other? That's also important for each other.
That's right. That's right.
So let's just go through. I keep saying that. I stop at one. I still have a copy of Be Here Now by Ram Dass, still a powerful book in my life. There's so many beautiful books.
Right.
There's so many people who spend so much time of their life compiling this wisdom and making it available. I mean, if you go to libraries, it's unlimited, the knowledge you can find there. And it's one page at a time. For some reason, I can't see anyone's comment. I hear that.
Oh, no.
Oh, no. The best one can do is go to the profile and see them directly while it's happening. But, I'm so at a loss to figure out what's going on with LinkedIn half of the time. What you never want to think it's something I did or somebody else did that's stopping it, but I don't think that's true, because how could some and not others have that capability? Unless everybody writes and says, I can't see comments, and then I'll know there's a bigger problem. Can you try to log? That's a good point. Yeah, or sometimes you even have to, you don't have to, but move to your phone. Uh,
Yes.
do
Yeah.
we need to refresh the page? Yeah, if it's not working, it's probably something. That tells you a lot of wisdom there. It's crazy how tech are
Yeah.
happening at times. It's not crazy anymore. It's commonplace. I am so surprised
Yes.
when I connect and everybody can hear each other.
Can
I
you hear me?
I got dropped off for 20 minutes last week. Play a little 42. Well, the good thing about grandkids is they're still into playing cards. So we get a lot
Yes.
of activity there. So we
A
kind
lot of wisdom.
of, I mean, I think wisdom has been a very, very, oh, interactive subject, and it's what everybody needs. And you've been a veteran of education in your days. So, how do you see wisdom now as when it used to be?
Well, I asked I have another couple of questions. If we don't do them right now, that's fine. You can think about them. But I wanted to know, what are your personal words of wisdom? If someone asks you, what makes you tick? What makes you work the way you work? How would you respond to that? What are your personal words of wisdom that you might share on a regular basis? Something that you really believe in. I
Um,
think we have a little bit of time, and those that could hear me and see me and everything. Do you have personal words of wisdom that you like to share with people?
that's a great question. Um, I think words of wisdom get a little bit more easy to retain when it's connected to a quote or a
That's
rhyme,
right.
and it's typically to encourage some sort of activity or new activity. So, the saying that if you don't have time to do it right, do you have time to do it over again? You know, Measure twice, cut once.
Right.
It's leave the log pile bigger than you found it. So it's like those in itself says take your time, because get it right and then get it bigger. Most people want to get it bigger and then come back and make it right, and sometimes it's too late to change the culture, the foundation, and then make it comfortable.
Yeah.
Make it your thing if it is your thing. If someone said design a house only for what you enjoy, right? Then everything when it got completed should be exactly what you always wanted, right? It may turn out not to be that case, but at least it matched
That's
the
right.
plan. And, look at yourself as under construction. Look at wisdom as a way of remodeling. To say, I'm tired of being in these situations, and there's a saying too that says, if it's going to be, it's up to me. You know,
Yes.
don't wait for help. It may not come, and it usually doesn't. And if it does, it doesn't always come in the form you wanted it. Design your life, learn how to live that life through wisdom. And, you
Mm.
should, even when they say college, at the end, they called a commencement exercise. And they're not saying it's a final. They're not saying you just got all the information
Right. You're done.
and this is the beginning now. Go here and build on what you learned how to learn and who taught you and be a teacher. And I think that's a responsibility. Even if you don't want it, maybe you're a conduit for someone who needs it.
Well,
You know,
I don't think anybody can know everything right now. There's no way with AI and all the other information available to us. The future is now, so it's kind of a moot point to think that we can go to school and learn factoids, which probably aren't going to be worth anything in another year, maybe 6 months. We're going so fast,
yeah,
so
and even
the
now,
change is so rapid.
well,
It takes wisdom to know what to pay attention to.
what's interesting about that is the forms of what you needed to know are getting minimized. So, in other words,
Mhm.
was who won the Battle of 1812 or something. right? That's a factoid, and it's easy
Mm-hmm.
to look up, and you don't have to think about it. You don't have to remember
Right.
it. You can take that space and give it to something else. But now it's a matter of how do you do things?
Yeah, it's about knowing where to go for information, learning how to learn.
Well,
So if
now,
we're looking at constant upskilling and constant learning, a culture, whether it's business world or school, it's all the same to me. It's like, is this a culture of learning and continuous learning? To me, that's the greatest wisdom of our time, is to know what to focus on and tune into to get those nuggets and those special currents that make sense to us and help us grow and transform as people.
well,
If we want to make a better world, we have to.
for sure. And the other thing is, for change to take place, one has to be able to embrace change. And, you know,
Yes,
initially when AI, and it's getting talked about almost to no end,
incessantly.
yeah,
Right.
and Chat GBT, uh, I thought, wow, looks like the evil empire. And I believe it is, to be honest with you. But, anyways, I started using it. And what I
That's right.
learned, and I thought initially, I'll just give it what I have and it'll give it back to me, right? Maybe a little cleaner, a little polished. It expanded things like pages. So not only does it take and find the information, but then writes it out for you if you want. And all of a sudden you give it 8 lines and you just say, make this more empowering. And all of a sudden it's a page and all the
Oh,
information is great. If you say incorporate LinkedIn Live in it, it knows everything about LinkedIn Live and it integrates
geez.
that. So it's now you don't have to know how to write even. You just have to know what to write. So
Mhm.
now actually it's moving up to the creative, to the imaginative, and
Yes.
proactive. Where if you're a copywriter today, you're like a blacksmith when the first car showed up in your town.
Yes, yes,
If
yes, yes,
you're a
yes, yes.
writer, sorry to say,
Right.
I can give it 6 lines and keep expanding it. It'll be an ebook in an hour.
Jeez.
Yeah, I mean, and it's only going to do more. People are going to rely on it. And what's also going to happen is the people who embrace it will have a competitive advantage over the people who don't. The people who do LinkedIn or have a competitive advantage over people that don't know how or don't know it exists. And it's really the wisdom of knowing what's relevant
Right.
and what's necessary.
Right.
People chose wisdom like they choose their TV programs. I want comedy tonight. I want a romance. I want something. Versus, hey, here's what your life is about. If you want to not just only achieve it, but we're not even talking about people who want to maintain it,
Mhm.
right? There's people are where they want to be, but they don't think this is sustainable with what's happening around them. So how do they get to climb the mountain a little further up to avoid the floodwaters? Uh,
Mhm.
so there's a sense of urgency too.
Yes, yes.
If you know something's coming, how prepared are you for you and your family? And that includes this family, right? How many people here, if we all thought and can keep coming up with things of use, of benefit, could we be stronger? And wisdom that makes everybody stronger is quality wisdom, and
Mhm.
it gives people security. Boy, that person really got muscles, that person is really prodigious. This person is so, we can all be everything we wanted to be and more if we don't fight change. And I think that's the key.
Right, right.
You
Well,
can,
that's where wisdom's coming in, is knowing what to pay attention to. If we have so much distraction out there, which we do, there has to be a wisdom about what are you gonna glom onto. I mean, there's just too much stuff going on, and I think we have a minute or so. I wanted to especially ask you, Don, everybody to think about this question. If we were going to make a mental fortune cookie, what one line would you put in your mental fortune cookie about wisdom? Something to think about. What would you put in yours, Don?
That's a good question. Makes me think.
I know. For everybody. I had to think about it too.
I'd say
That's why I wrote that one.
I'd say do the best you can. I think if that was a message most people could see and understand, yeah, I can do the best I can. The question becomes, how do you get better? How do you do it more often? You know, people try to solve a major issue that took time in a thought or an action and think it's going to disappear. You know, if you look at everything as a journey, as a process, as a time frame,
Right.
you know, then it's a trip. You know, it's new, it's exciting. Maybe not exciting always in the way you want to be excited, but it opens your eyes and it makes you feel like you're alive. And I think that's
Yes.
really important, is, are people really living the best life they can, where they are, who they are, with what they have. And if you can at least do
Mhm.
that, you know, and then take another step, because if your life hopefully goes for a long time, wouldn't it be great if you knew everything you're doing is going to be building a better future, a better happiness down the road? Uh,
Right.
and just being around people who are successful, who are going places and doing things. You just think, hey, it's just a matter of time till I'm doing what they're doing, because we're talking the same thing, we're seeing each other the same way, we're sharing so much. And they're going to want to have people at the top with them when they get there. You know, they say it's
Right.
lonely at the top. That could be one of the worst things one can do, is be so successful on everybody else's back and not bring anybody with them. You
I
know?
listened to Warren Buffett the other day, another one of his speeches. They're all, to me, they're all always great. And for that fortune cookie from Warren Buffett, I got one thing that I would put in my fortune cookie right now, and that is to surround ourselves with good, positive people.
Yeah. I mean, how can you beat it? And in the past, where you're going to find 40 people you can meet every day at a certain point
That's
from
right.
all around the world, who come here
Right.
pretty much every day, obviously, because there's wisdom here. Wisdom
Hmm.
to share, wisdom to take, wisdom to give, and it continues tomorrow. It's not like,
That's
okay,
right.
game's over, everybody counted up, hope everybody became a winner today, versus, hey, if today gets you halfway till to tomorrow's wisdom, you know, isn't that
Hmm.
nice to savor something, to learn, you know,
Right.
in little uh, digestible pieces? I mean, that's like chocolate, you know,
Yeah.
how you can break it down in little pieces and taste it, or you can just devour the whole bar. But I think if you take that to anything you like in life, and you know, you want to extend the time, you don't want to compress it, you don't want to leave, you want to have more time. And where there's so many things in life that's such an inconvenience, you know, that you couldn't wait for the line to move forward, or traffic to open up, or something else. And that's real and that's necessary. But the flip side should be just the opposite. When you
Mhm.
find people,
Mhm.
environments that really
Right.
make you feel better than where you've been or where you're going, that tells you you're home. And
Mhm.
home is the wisest place, especially when we relate to parents, grandparents, family gatherings, that really shaped your ability to learn, and how you looked at learning. So, anyways, past the hour. Leslie's here. Leslie's gonna
This
Saturday.
year goes fast, doesn't it?
I had Leslie on before, and she's just a real
Yes.
dynamo, and a real
Yeah.
benefit to everybody she touches. So thank you, Leslie. Thank you, everybody, for coming here today.
Thank you,
Rita,
everybody.
we got final words. You were the one who really came up with these wonderful words, and wisdom was your.
Well, I'm also thinking about wacky and weird. I told Don we need to have some fun. So we have some interesting guests that are going to be joining us. I haven't gotten it all confirmed with Don, but it's about you, everybody that's here, whether you're sitting there in pajamas and moccasins or you're dressed for the day. The main thing is you're here and you're listening and you're learning and you're sharing. And I look forward to, I do have to run for an appointment, but when I get back, I want to go through all of your comments. I'm not very good at looking over and back like Don is. So just know how gratified I am that you're enjoying our Wednesday sessions. I'm thrilled to be with Don, enough that I get up early to do this. So for me, it's really just for everybody. Have an amazing day, and know that something that you say or you do or you give today to one person, like Mother Teresa said, you don't have to worry about everybody. Just start with the one closest to you. And may that one thing you do make a huge difference for someone else. Because when you do that, I guarantee you, you'll get the most out of it. We get way more than we give. When we give.
Well, thank you for that wonderful closing share. And I hope everybody does something. I hope everybody learns something. And I hope everybody comes back with a story of what they learned or what they applied, because that would be great, because that would continue this into another day. So with that, can't thank Rita enough. She's just a wonderful resource for knowledge and wisdom, and look forward to next week with Rita coming back again, and we'll probably have more you starting words going forward to match Wednesday. So we're trying to be creative in so many different ways. Thank you very much. Come back in 23 hours. Talk to you.